Well, hello again. Welcome back. Thank you again for watching. Today, we are continuing on with day 6 of the Jose Ruiz trial. And today is basically the closing arguments. The state has rested, the defence has rested, and today's closing arguments, jury deliberations, and the verdict. So before we get started, though, I want to just pay a little tribute to the victim in this case, who is little 5-year-old Mercedes Victoria Lozoya. And we need to remember that she is the most important thing here. So okay, so that was little Mercedes. So today we start off with closing arguments. So let's jump right in, shall we? This is the jury instruction. Judge Boyd giving. Hang on. What did it talk about? Two. There we go. Oh, I suppose I should share the screen. There we go. We are
Yes, Your Honor.
closing statements
Afternoon.
of the defence.
First of all, I apologize for the drama on Friday and for the minor drama on jury selection when I became disoriented. Did recover from that one, but Friday was a disaster, and I apologize for it. What I'm asking you to consider, first of all, what if Jose wasn't home that day? Would he be in that chair right now? I think it's an interesting point. Mercedes is dead. Precious Mercedes Lozoya, 5-year-old child, is dead. How did she die? The state's not worried about that. They're just worried about what happened before she died. There are plenty of charges. I won't go into all of them. I don't want to drive you crazy. You've been here long enough. I am most deeply influenced by Jordan. She had a front row seat to everything that happened. Maybe she was asleep sometimes. Basically, she was there. I don't believe she had an opportunity to be coached. She gave her statement to a social worker, apparently the day after her sister was found dead. And the testimony she gave was that her mother was jamming food into her sister's mouth. Her sister was spitting it out. She kept jamming it in. And ultimately, she shoved a spoon down Mercedes' throat. At that point, Mercedes fell on the floor, according to Jordan, and she had no more breath. Jordan said that her mom tried to put breath in Mercedes, but it didn't work. believe she said it happened twice, but it didn't work. Mercedes had no more breath. My recollection is that Jordan then said, my mom took me and Mercedes and we went to her boyfriend's apartment somewhere in the complex. Mercedes had an opportunity to say, oh, Jose brought her back to life when we got to his place. She never said that. As far as she was concerned, her sister was dead when they left Jeanette's apartment. And they were in Jeanette's apartment. They weren't in Jose's apartment. Who is Jeanette? You never saw her. State never brought her. But she was there. She had been the place where Katrina had stayed with her children for 2 days before her death. Katrina told you that. Now, I'm telling you things that I saw, my perceptions, my beliefs. You are not required to listen to me. I'm required to tell you what I think and to hope you will go the direction that I'm trying to put you in. But you don't have to. You are the final determiner of what is truthful and what you've just seen for the past week. What did CPS, Child Protective Services, do to protect Mercedes? His name is not called Jose Protective Services. The name of the agency is Child Protective Services. Did you hear anything that indicated that they protected Mercedes?
They're not the ones on trial here.
I would suggest to you that you didn't. You heard a very fine man, Mr. Adame, report on what he saw as an investigator, but you didn't hear any testimony about, well, we're CPS and we did this or that.
Well, that's because you subpoenaed the wrong person.
You didn't see it. Again, it's your information, it's your beliefs that count, not what any lawyer tells you. And then there's the police. We had, I believe, 3 neighbors that testified that they called the police because they heard a child crying in agony, not just moaning and groaning because she didn't have a toy, but crying in pain. They heard they heard hits, they heard smacks. They called the police. With the witness Mo, as I recall, they didn't show up. With the other witness, the couple, the woman said they did come to the upstairs apartment, but they didn't go inside, to the best of her knowledge. They just stayed outside. I didn't hear any follow-up. It's up to you. Did you hear any follow-up by SAPD? Now, I'm not telling you that cop should have broken in the door. In the present climate, he'd probably have been arrested if he had broken in the door. But he could have followed up with somebody from his department the next day looking into, was the child all right? You didn't hear any evidence whatsoever that anybody checked up on Mercedes. There was another time that that neighbor called, as I recall, and she said that there was no response at all. In both cases, that neighbor was not contacted apparently by anybody to follow up on the story about whether the child was safe or not. Ultimately, that's really what we're talking about in this whole case. Who protected the child?
I'm sorry.
Here's the thing, asshole.
She has based her entire argument throughout the entire trial based on a 6-year-old's statement that was taken the day after her younger sister had died. She's hell-bent on it being asphyxiation from choking or from asthma, and is blindsided by all the evidence and everything else around her, doesn't comprehend the whole medical examiner's diagnosis and how the muscles break down or anything with the kidney failure. Just a clusterfuck. That's all I can say. Let's continue.
The state has submitted Katrina Mendoza, the co-defendant, as the witness against Jose. Technically, there, in my opinion, only 3 people, that would have the information on what actually happened. Katrina, Jose, and Jordan.
Correct.
The judge has instructed you cannot rely completely on the testimony or evidence produced by the accomplice. And I ask you, what was produced, except what Jordan said, other than by the accomplice? I would say everything. Everything came in from her. Was she believable? That's your decision, not mine. She called her daughter a liar. She said Jordan didn't really see her shoving food down the child's mouth. Jordan
There was
didn't
no
really see
evidence
her
in the
put a
autopsy
spoon
of
in her
that.
mouth. Jordan didn't really see her fall to the floor, and Jordan didn't really see her stop breathing. Jordan never used the word stop breathing. Again, what I'm saying to you is what I recall. I'm not trying to mislead you. Your statements, your thoughts and remembrance may be different than mine. It's you that count. I can't say that enough. She also said that reports from police and whatnot were wrong. An interesting thing I thought about Katrina's testimony was her memory that sometimes was crystal clear, and other times she couldn't remember anything. She only had 2 kids. She couldn't remember what schools they went to. She couldn't remember what medicines they got. She couldn't really recognize asthma and that it's a serious disease in her child.
Yeah, okay. She might have been a crap mother. But she's taken her plea deal. She's admitted her part, her role in this. She's here to testify against the defendant, Jose, and what she allowed to transpire, basically.
She said, as I recall, that it wasn't very serious asthma. Who do you believe, Jordan or her mother? We have the detectives, Detective Warren Size and Detective Cahill, who gave an extremely expert analysis of what they had seen. They were horrified, understandably. But they were, I believe, flawless in what they did in terms of investigation. Gustavo Cervantes was the charge nurse, as I remember him to be. He didn't see Katrina run into the hospital carrying Mercedes saying, "Help my baby," but he heard it. According to the charge nurse, she had no life in her. She was cold. She had no signs of life. They tried to resuscitate her. I think it was 3 times that they had to do it under the Glasgow rules or something, but they couldn't resuscitate her. They put an instrument in her knee and various other places to try to get blood and put IVs in, but they weren't successful. At that point, we have Katrina, I believe, feigning an emotional situation. Detective Cahill didn't believe her at all. He thought she was faking emotion at the time. And this was right away. This wasn't days later. It was right away. If you're carrying your child into an ER, do you have to fake it? If she's not breathing, again, your call. I suggest to you that if you believe, and I don't know what you're going to believe, so I'm covering different angles of this, but if you believe that Mercedes was alive when Jose saw her and that he gave her resuscitation, and I believe he said held her over his shoulder like a baby, patting her, trying to clear her lungs. If you believe that, and if you believe he acted carefully and reasonably, that's a defense. It's a defense by the statute. It's not a defense by Teresa. It's a defense by the statute.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the statement of the law.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the law will be given to you in the charge of the court. You may continue. And 5 minutes, counsel.
Thank you. When you look at your charge, it will explain probably in better language than I just used because I didn't have it memorized.
See?
But if you feel
Two-year-old could
that
do
that
that.
part really did happen and that she didn't come there dead, then you find him not guilty. Katrina is going to get a benefit out of her testimony. She could get probation, which is the other term for deferred adjudication. The most she can get in jail, the most, under her plea agreement, is 45 years. She could get anywhere up to 45 years. Over 5, it has to be minimum 5, but anywhere up to 45 years. What if she did such a good job and you convict Jose of all this stuff? What if she gets 10? What if she gets probation?
Object to relevance, Your Honor.
All right, that'll be overruled. Ladies and gentlemen, this is closing arguments. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. My final words to you. Nobody protected that child, that beautiful little child, when she was alive. Nobody vindicated her death. It's up to you to do that.
That's probably the only thing, the only statement from the whole trial that's come out of her mouth that I agree with.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court?
The state's closing arguments.
Mercedes Lozoya was 5 years old. She was a 5-year-old little girl. Now, unfortunately, everyone except Katrina that you saw in this trial only knew her from February 7th, 2022 and on. They can only describe her as bruised, missing hair, missing toenails, missing teeth, horrifically injured. So what do we know about her? We get from the little details. We know that the neighbors would hear her talking back. You can tell from that picture she loved her sister. She was a fighter. As Detective Lloyd said, she was a second born. Discipline. Discipline is what Katrina called it. She needed more discipline, so she went to Jose. He said, hey, give her to me. I'll show her discipline. Well, discipline was abuse. But what Jose did took it to a whole other level. That abuse became cruelty. Plain cruelty, torture. And this case has been emotional. It has been trying. It's important. Down to the technicalities. Jury deliberations, you are to select a foreman, go through the evidence. I think we have 111 exhibits. Not everything is in evidence. It's important to understand the police reports. Things that we referred to but didn't actually admit are not going to go back there. But you'll have multiple videos, Jordan's statements, defendant's statements. That charge is enormous. It took us 45 minutes to read it. Don't get lost in the weeds. Don't overthink it. On or about, this is one of the ways that people sometimes get lost. On or about is just that. You'll see a date range from the counts. There's January 23rd, 2022, all the way to February 5th. On or about simply means before the date of indictment. I know that sounds silly, but legally that's all it has to be. Do not get stuck on that. It's been proven. Now, count 1, injury to a child causing serious bodily injury. You all do not have to agree how the serious bodily injury occurred exactly. Only that Jose Ruiz was the cause. acting with Katrina Mendoza. You can say that manner and means unknown. We know he hit her. We know he made her hold heavy things, but we don't know exactly what led to the serious bodily injury. Or paragraph B, failing to seek care. Count 2, we have an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and counts 3 to 8 are injury to a child with bodily injury. Manner and means, you must be unanimous that the actions of the defendant and co-defendant, Katrina Mendoza, as a party, resulted in serious bodily injury to Mercedes. Our serious bodily injury is not one, obviously she has bruises all over her. She's covered in bruises. All of those bruises, either by themselves or in conjunction with the horrendous exertion that they put on this little girl, led to rhabdomyolysis, rhabdo, which led to kidney failure. And you heard that that is a substantial risk of death. And one thing defense counsel said, I'm going to repeat again, we're not here how she died. That day, that horrible day, when for some reason this defendant chose to go from northeast side of town, ignore all the hospitals up there, and drive all the way to Southwest General. We're not here to talk about how she died on that day. We know she had rhabdomyolysis, and we know that she had injuries covering her body. That injury is enough. Law of parties. If you think Katrina Mendoza is the one who did all of these things, but you think that they acted together. Remember, Katrina was the one who invited him to use physical discipline on her. Katrina was the one who would spank her, have him hold her down. They did it together until it got to be a little too much for Katrina. Care, custody, and control. He took custody of Mercedes on January 21st, 2022. We know that even before that, the neighbors overheard Mercedes screaming, "Dad, no." So they called him Dad. They were under his authority. They were under his roof. He assumed care, custody, and control of that child. Like I said, rhabdomyolysis equals death if it is not treated. It is serious bodily injury. Gustavo Cervantes, Dr. Molina, Dr. Cannon all said that. Permanent disfigurement. You look at her. You look at her and see if she had permanent disfigurement. Protracted loss of a body member or organ. Her kidney was failed. Ag assault, deadly weapon. This is referring to the multiple times when Jose would put his hand over her mouth and over her nose. Yes, Katrina Mendoza talked about it. But you have to think too, Katrina Mendoza, as guilty as she is for her part in this, what she said was corroborated. Corroborated by stuff that Jordan said, corroborated by Jose's own cell phone, corroborated by the neighbors who clearly said that Jose, the man, was the one making those pounding noises. Injury to a child, count 3. Striking with the hand. I'm asking you, go back there, that horrible video of them in the car, that was only one of 3 from that day. Go watch those videos. See him hit her. Look at those rings. All of these pictures are in evidence. Look at those rings. Look at the injuries. Or read the medical examiner report. You'll see multiple punctate injuries of 2 to 3 centimeter. They match up to his rings. You see his fingers in the pictures there from when he knocked out her teeth? Injury to a child, pinching with the hand. He actually admitted to this in his statement. He admitted to pinching. This was the first injury that Katrina Mendoza said she saw after that first day. Inserting tacks in the feet of Mercedes. That was from his phone, from when he would watch her on a Ring camera. And that diagram right there is from the medical examiner's report. All of those are holes in the bottom of her feet. Count number 6, striking her with a belt. Jordan and Katrina both talked about it. Pulling her hair. I don't need to show you those pictures again. You remember. She had huge chunks of hair missing. Jordan, Jose, and Katrina, they all pulled her hair, but mostly Jose. Striking Mercedes with the phone. Now, both of her hands were horribly bruised and injured, and that was from his phone. We had Detective Knox, who we put in the timestamps of the exhibits, and then Katrina came and we gave you the pictures that corresponded it. I'm putting them together here. January 21st, 2022. This is the day that he took Mercedes. This is the day, for some weird reason, he decides to start filming what he's doing to her. 4:44 p.m. She's holding that jug. 5:20, she's got an injury on her lip. 6:54 p.m. is the last of 3 videos where he's forcing her to do this, forcing her under threat, hitting her. Also note, her teeth are intact. January 21st, her teeth are intact, her hair is intact. The only injury you can see on her face is the one that he had just caused. January 22nd, he starts putting urine-soaked underwear in her mouth and filming it. January 25th, her hair. January 31st, 7:21 a.m., he sees her on the Ring video. Maybe she wasn't supposed to be standing up. I don't know why he got mad. But 6 minutes later, you have the picture, and I cut out part of it. It's that horrible picture where she is bound and she is on the floor and she is naked.
5 minutes.
7:28 a.m., there is another shot. We did not enter it into evidence because it was so awful. Up like a crucifix, naked with clothes over her face. All within 7 minutes of each other. February 2nd, 2022, he covers her in bandages, takes a picture of it. February 4th, there goes her tooth. February 5th, Katrina told you this was her final straw. After this is when she finally took the girls and left. Look at her face. In such a short amount of time, she went from smiling to looking distressed. She was sick by this point. She had been overworked. She had been overworked to the point where her body was giving out. Now we know in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant, Jose Ruiz, on or about February 2022, did intentionally or knowingly cause serious bodily injury to Mercedes Lozoya, a child, a 5-year-old child, by manner and means unknown. And what we mean by that is that you get to decide. Was it that time that he had her up like this? Was it the time he made her hold the jug? Was it the countless beatings? Or was it a combination? And that gets you to guilty. Beyond a reasonable doubt, it's not defined in Texas, not required that we prove guilt beyond all doubt. You use your reason and your common sense.
3 minutes.
We know that's a picture of a gun. It's missing some pieces. We don't know everything. We don't know why he filmed it. We don't know why Katrina didn't leave sooner. We don't know everything, but we know that he hit that little girl again and again. And that little girl cried out for help, and unfortunately, she didn't get that help. But we're not here. CPS is not on trial. Police are not on trial. Jose Ruiz is on trial. Do not lose sight of that. That man knew exactly what he was doing. You don't hit a 5-year-old child and not recognize the danger in that, especially someone like Mercedes Listen to his statement. She was fine. She was fine. She was fine. No, she wasn't. She was dying because of the serious bodily injury that he had given her with those beatings and that overwork. Now, you might have been wondering, why did we go through so much effort to give you that jail call? It didn't play very loud in court, so I wanted to end on it so that you know that he knew exactly that he caused those injuries to Mercedes. If that autopsy comes back while I'm in jail, I'm staying in jail. Because he knew what he did. This is not a reckless act. You don't do things repeatedly recklessly. There's lesser included offenses. No. He hit that girl. He overworked that girl. Him and Katrina worked together in making that little girl's life hell the last 2 weeks. And we ask, just like defense said, let's vindicate her. Please find Jose Ruiz guilty of all counts. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask for you to remain. Defense and state if you'll meet me over here, please.
All right. So the timestamp is 6:09. The jury is now. Hang on. The jury is now out for deliberation. How long do you think they're going to be out for? I can tell you how long. Under an hour. They return within 58 minutes with a verdict. Let's get to it. 7:07. 30. And
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the court's understanding that you've reached a verdict in this case. Is that correct? And is that verdict unanimous? All right, the fourth person, if you would hand the verdict form to Deputy Laura, please.
Maximum volume.
All right, defendant will please rise. It states, count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in count one of the indictment.
guilty.
Count two reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon
Guilty.
as charged in count two of the indictment. Count three reads, we, the jury, find the defendant,
Oh, stop, spinning wheel, stop.
Jose Ruiz, guilty of the
Oh, what's going on? Stop. This is the important bit. Hang on. Might have to pull it up again. Give me a moment. Live streaming IT. Where's that doing it? just refresh the page. Whoa. We go back to 707. There. Share screen. Right. Let's hope this one works. Right, we're back at the start of the judge reading out the verdict for each
Defendant will
charge.
please rise. It states, count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in count one of the indictment. Count two reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon as charged in count two of the indictment. Count three reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in count three of the indictment. Count four reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in count four of the indictment. Count five reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in count five of the indictment. Count six reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in count six of the indictment. Count seven reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in count seven of the indictment. Count eight reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jose Ruiz, guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged.
You can see the bailiff standing right behind him there. That's never a good sign when you're in court, when they're reading out the verdict. But yes, you heard correctly. Guilty across the board on all 8 counts. So we now go into the second phase of the trial, which is called the punishment phase or the sentencing phase. So we get to hear from his family, Katrina's family. We get to hear what happens or what's happened to Jordan and how she is, and some other family members. So let's continue on. But the defense and the state now put on another case, basically to allow the jury to give a proper and to reflect a proper punishment for the crime, basically. So that's where we're going now.
And count 8 of the indictment. You may be seated. Would anyone wish
So
to
the
have
jury
the
gets to decide the
poll?
sentence.
Right. All right, we're now starting with the second phase of the trial. State, do you have any opening statements?
So it's almost like a mini trial within the
All
trial
right, you may proceed.
to get the effective result.
I know it was a hard thing to look through. And like I said in my closing, it's unfortunate that you really only heard people that heard or saw Mercedes from the day she died. In punishment, you will hear from Uncle Rodney, and you'll hear how Jordan's doing. And you'll hear what an impact this has had on Jordan and family. And at the end of it, we will be asking for life.
All right, defense, any opening?
Yes, Your Honor.
Feel free to write down in the comments what
Gentlemen
you
of the
think
jury,
the sentence will
I'm
be.
Lorraine Ephron. I'm one of Jose's attorneys. You have heard chapter 2 of his story. Now I'm going to give you chapter 1 of his story. And I just ask that you stay with me, stay with us as you hear part 1 of Jose Ruiz's life. Thank you.
All right, State, call your first witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Rodney Edwards.
This is Mercedes' uncle, Rodney.
If you raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you give will be the
We
truth,
won't
the whole
listen
truth, so help you God?
to his entire testimony because there is
Make sure you
at
keep your
least
voice up for
six
members of the jury and the court reporter. Please state your name for the record.
witnesses to
Rodney
get
Lee
through.
Edwards.
State.
All right, good afternoon, Rodney. How were you related to Mercedes Lislian?
I am married to Katrina's adopted sister, and Alec Edwards is my wife. And so Katrina used to stay with us on and off with the kids.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you repeat? You are married to
Angelica Edwards.
Angelica Edwards.
Correct.
Angelica is the daughter of Katrina's godfather, Homer.
Correct.
Now, how long have you known Mercedes?
Pretty much ever since she was born. She's been staying with us on and off. I saw her grow up, took care of her, bought her stuff, treated her pretty much like she was my own.
Did you know Jordan?
Correct. Same as well. There's pretty much two peas in the pots. They made me mad, but they also made me smile at the same time. So it's a child life that I was looking forward to, seeing them grow.
Okay. Now, how close were you to Mercedes?
Pretty close. If she ever needed anything, she knew to come to me and her and my wife, because we'll pretty much give it to her. So, like I said, she's like real close, pretty much like one of my daughters.
Welcome to those that have just joined the stream. Thank you for watching.
Make her happy, make her smile. I hate to see
Feel
her
free
sad.
to make any comments. This is Uncle Rodney. We're in the second phase of the trial, which is the sentencing phase. Jose Ruiz was found guilty on all 8
Back in
counts
2022,
across the
where were
board.
you living?
With my father-in-law, still at the same location up at Caspian Point.
And who else was living in the home?
My wife, Katrina, and the 2 kids, and my wife's 2 brothers, and my father-in-law.
How long had the living situation been that way, or everyone was under the same roof?
It's been on and off. Katrina would leave with her boyfriends, sometimes move in with her boyfriends, and then move back in when she felt on, I guess, when they weren't working it out or they broke up. But she always knew she could come back home, especially with the kids. And we make sure we take care of the kids. They had their own, I guess, bedroom to share with their mom. They had their pretty much own stuff. They played with their brother-in-laws, which is my brother-in-laws. So, I mean, it was just basically a family life. You know, we went out on weekends, go out to, what is it? Flea market, stuff like that, because they love going to flea market with little kids and stuff like that. Flea market pizza, just having a fun time, family time.
What other children were in the household?
There's only Katrina, Mercedes, and the only 2 children was, I guess you could say, her brothers. They're like 10, 8 and 10 now.
Ronnie, would Mercedes sometimes steal your phone?
More than sometimes, that's for sure. She loved taking pictures of herself. I'm pretty sure she was going to think she's going to be a model. She was a fan of the camera. I guarantee you that. She
What
just loves
5-year-old
being
girl
herself.
isn't?
She's very, very outspoken too. Very talkative. You couldn't tell her no without a reason why, and it has to be legit, no matter what.
How would you describe her personality?
Fun, very questionable. Like I said, loving, always happy, playful. She wants to know more than she's supposed to as a kid. Put it like that. And I kept on telling her, be a kid. It's not gonna last long. You'll be the adult soon.
Yeah.
Just be a kid and have
True that.
fun. She's always talking, always joking around. Has a great humor, and just love life.
Did Katrina ever mention giving up her rights to Mercedes?
A couple of times to my wife. I knew it was a play that she was just playing along. She would never do it, but my wife always thought she would. So that's why we always did as much as we can. Pretty much for Katrina as well, because if we help Katrina, we're helping out the kids as well. So, yes.
And so, did you and your wife want to adopt Mercedes?
100%. My wife wanted to. Well, I don't know, but I don't think my wife could get pregnant. I've been trying. So, that was the next best thing. I mean, she loved us. We loved her. We gave her anything. She was pretty much our second kid anyways. So.
She probably would have been way better off with you, Rodney.
And Mercedes, were you closer to one of them than the other?
Mercedes. Jordan's much more closer to her mom. Mercedes, she's I guess you would say, quote unquote, rebel. I wouldn't say rebel. She's, like I said, very questionable. You have to give her a point, a reason why it makes sense to her. Otherwise, she's not going to understand it and not going to follow it.
What's wrong with that?
That's the way she was. But that's what a kid was. Her mind was still growing, developing. She was a kid. She wanted to know everything and wanted to know why.
Can I approach the witness?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been marked States Exhibits 112 through 117. And you'll forgive me, I accidentally printed pictures several times.
They show some photos of Rodney and Mercedes together in memory. The defense is just going through the photos to make sure that they're appropriate.
All right, then States
No
Exhibits
objection.
112 through 117 is admitted without objection.
Okay, and if I haven't officially, I am going to officially offer 112 through 117. What are those?
These are pictures of Mercedes.
Now, let's see. 112 and 113. Did you take those pictures?
I took this one. I think somebody else took this one.
Okay. Now 116 through 114 through 117.
Oh, she was the photo. She was the camera lady. She took pictures of me and her. I did take a picture of this
They
one.
will put them up on the big screen.
115. I think my wife took a picture of this one. I did take a picture of this one.
And who's in the picture with her? And
Her sister, Jordan. They're just sitting on the bench, smiling, loving life,
and
letting the wind blow through their hairs.
I see she's got a hand.
Oh, hands on the hips. Like I said, she is.
Excuse me.
She got some tood.
I'm sorry.
In States Exhibit 115, how are her hands positioned?
Her hands are positioned on her hips, like she's ready to tell somebody. You can't tell her nothing.
States Exhibit 116. Who's in that picture?
It is three. It is herself, her sister, and my brother-in-law, the youngest one, Jeremiah. That's his name. He's sticking out his tongue, and they're both smiling in the camera.
Okay. And 117.
And
took that
117, she took it of herself.
Just make sure you cannot talk over each other. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
117, she took a picture of herself, sticking her tongue out with a laugh.
And may I publish?
Yes.
Actually, I can put it up on the. Is that how you remember her?
Aw.
She's 5 years old?
Very, very much, yes.
big brown eyes.
Do you know how old she was there?
I can't tell you how old. I know we went camping though because of the background, and
Did you go camping a lot with her?
we went camping quite a lot. I love going camping. I try to go at least once a quarter.
So this photo.
Welcome to those joining the stream.
This was at the zoo.
Grab your
Um,
Milo.
Oh wait, yeah, I believe it's at the zoo. Correct, at San Antonio Zoo.
Okay.
This
And who took this photo?
Mercedes took that photo of me, and she made sure to take a picture. She said, "Look, we're gonna take a picture." And I turned around, she took the picture.
Okay, now this is the photo, one that we talked
Aw.
about before, with her hands on her hip.
That's how I noticed her mostly a lot.
Oh,
Like I
no,
said,
you
came to
didn't.
her without a good reason, and she loves to be in charge. And so we like to make sure she's in charge because it makes her happy.
That's what it's all about.
116, you testified this is her brother-in-law?
Correct. Well, my brother-in-law, but yes, correct. And that was when they went camping.
And so
Tweedledee, Tweedledum.
That is correct.
And then,
Said that out loud.
last but not least,
I just.
this is 117.
Oh,
Like I said, she did that a lot. And there's about 50 plus photos of her holding my phone, taking pictures like this. She really loved the camera.
And then whose puppy is that?
That is my dog. Her name is Indica. That's when she was a baby. She's 5 years old now.
Does Mercedes like dogs?
Love dogs.
Rodney, when did you find out that?
Is she
Mercedes
asleep?
likes-
Nana, wake up. Come on,
I
dearie.
think it
Whoa,
was
there, right.
2 or 3 days after it happened. I'm not for sure. We got told by her ex-boyfriend who came to the door because he was real nice.
Oh, that's right.
All right, ask your next question.
Not even Katrina told them what had happened. Katrina's ex-boyfriend
I don't know
before
his name, but
Jose
it's Katrina's
turned up at
ex
Rodney's house
before
a few days after
subject at hand.
It was the boyfriend.
Mercedes had died to
Correct.
tell him the news.
Had you ever met Jose Ruiz?
Personally, not really. I have met him though, but not met. Only reason I met him, he was in the car.
Yeah,
Did you know
I
that
feel you, Rodney.
Had gone to live with Jose Ruiz in his apartment.
Yes.
Did you have any concerns?
724.
Yes. I always have concerns.
What is the relevancy of this?
It goes to the increasing, I guess,
All right, we'll skip to the next.
volatility and
The next
emotional
is-
state of Mercedes leading up to. Okay, Maureen?
This is Mercedes' great grandmother on, I think, maternal side, yeah. No, paternal side. Because Jose isn't the father.
Would you like me to finish this? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, I'm gonna lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice low so that members of the jury and the court reporter can hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Her name?
For the record,
My name is
Lupa
Lupe
Torres.
Torres Morin.
state.
Lupa Torres.
Yes, you may.
Speak, please. Sí, señora.
I know Mercedes Lozoya because she's my great granddaughter.
On her maternal or paternal side?
Paternal.
Have you met Mercedes Lozoya when she was alive?
I met her when she was around 2 years old, and then no contact until October prior to the incident.
So only a moment.
Yes.
And tell me do you have personal knowledge of where Jordan Lasoya is currently?
Yes, Jordan is living with me. I have adopted Jordan.
And you have.
That's
you
her
have
older,
final,
Mercedes' older
correct?
sister.
Yes, ma'am, it is final.
Did Jordan's name change in that adoption?
Yes, it did. It changed to my name.
And specifically, did any other part of her name change?
Yes, when we asked her if she wanted to choose a second name, she chose her sister Victoria's because she wanted to have that special name in her heart and in her mind. So we named her Jordan Victoria Torres.
So
And you said her
great
sister
great
Victoria,
grandma adopted
did she have another sister?
Mercedes' older sister,
No,
Jordan.
Mercedes' name, I believe, was Mercedes Victoria Lozoya, so she wanted to keep the Victoria. Yes. She also calls her teddy bear
Sissy.
How has this affected Jordan, losing her sister?
very much. At first, when she came to the house, she would cry a lot. She would mention that she missed her sissy. She carried.
All right, that will be overruled. Your objection to narrative will be sustained.
Does she have anything that she uses to remember her sister by?
Yes, she has a little teddy bear
Audio
that she
isn't
carries
very
with
good
her and will not sleep
with
without her. That she calls her bear Sissy.
the prosecution because they're standing, they're not next to the microphone at their table.
Jordan had any negative impacts from losing her sister Mercedes?
Yes, a lot of negative impact, a lot of fears, not trusting to be around men by herself. She couldn't sleep by herself for a long period of time. She did not want to go into the bathroom by herself, not want to shower by herself.
Your Honor, I object to relevance, not responsive, and narrative. All right, that will be overruled.
Were there any other negative impacts Jordan that affected Jordan?
There's a lot of things that have impacted Jordan. All I can say is that she misses her sister very much.
What is Jordan's favorite color?
Her favorite color was, I believe it was blue, but she chose to be purple now because it was her sister's favorite color.
Hence why my thumbnails are purple. No questions from the defense.
Witness.
So the next witness up is Jose's mother, I think. Yes. No. Justin Knox. Justin Knox. Mr. Cutie. Oh, Mr. Ned Kelly. I like this man. Come on down, Justin. There he is. He's got a cheekier smile. And a wedding ring.
All right, you're still under oath.
Yes, Judge.
And if you'll restate your name for the record, please.
My name is Detective Justin Knox.
How you doing?
Good afternoon again, Dr. Knox.
Look at that.
Your Honor, at this time, I would reoffer all of the evidence from the
Settle, calm, Jody. Calm.
Your Honor, and again, re-urging prior objections and asking that the objections previously made be considered running.
She's re-urging objections previously made to photos submitted.
So I objected. I'm being overruled.
Yes.
I'm gonna wait first.
Yes.
I am going
Now, when he
to
originally
again-
testified, I wasn't sure why they didn't bring in all of the photography because he's the forensic
Which is
pathologist, I'm not sure what they call him, but
92B.
he was the one that downloaded all the data and the photos and
These were
messages
what we
from
previously were going
Jose's
through,
phone, which
just in a
is
sense.
what she's showing him now.
There were a number of items
But they
that
didn't
we-
bring any of the photos in. They just went through the timestamps with them and what dates and times.
Correct.
But now I understand why they've left it to now.
One item in particular is a photo. If you refer to the photos that were taken on January 31st, 2022.
I swear he looks like Ned Kelly. Come on, pan back to Justin. There we go.
All right, next question. Yes. Are the exhibits? No, not admitted. Okay, there you found it. So I'm going to show you. Let's see. States Exhibit 81 was previously discussed. There was also, I believe, States Exhibit. Here we go. 107.
Lemon.
Do you
Just spat out
again,
the lemon.
You see States Exhibit, this image in there.
Yes.
And what was the timestamp for this one?
January 31st, 2022 at 7:28 a.m.
And then we had States Exhibit 81, which was not introduced but was described in detail as Miss Lozoya in a crucifix position. What was the timestamp for that one?
That is January 31st, 2022 at 7:27 a.m.
Was there another photo taken directly after that one?
Yes, on 1/31/2022 at 7:29 a.m.
So the one right before it, States Exhibit 81, what was the timestamp for that one? I'm sorry.
2 minutes
It's
before.
1/31/2022 at 7:27 a.m.
7:27 a.m. And then this new picture that we're discussing.
It's at 7:29 a.m.
So 2 minutes later.
Yes.
What does that image appear to show?
It's a close-up of a naked female showing her vagina.
Are there any other photos after that on that day?
Without looking at all the photos, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. But there's nothing in the immediate lineup.
No, not here.
I think what they were insinuating there, if I get the vibe, either that photo was either of Jordan, of Mercedes, or the 727 one was the one where Mercedes was on the crucifix. Well, they made her stand like a crucifix. And then the one after that he said was a woman's vagina. Maybe they're suggesting that 2 minutes later he was looking at porn. I'm not sure. Either way, it's still wrong. But yeah, I didn't get
118
I suppose if there's no face showing them, they don't know
and 119.
whose bits belong to who.
Now you had a chance to review the full download of.
Either way,
Jose's
it's still
phone.
wrong.
Yes.
States 118 and 119. Are these pictures consistent with the pictures in his phone?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would offer State's Exhibit 118 and 119.
Hang on, I'll just come up in my comfy shoes. Just double check those pictures. Yeah. Got my bifocals on. Yeah. Well, my tag's hanging out my scarf. Well, I don't like those pictures. Must be colourblind too. Purple and green. Meanwhile, Justin's sitting there patiently. Wish I could lip read. Come on, ladies. Move it along. There we go. We're listening.
118 and 119 are sustained.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. State, call your next witness.
The state rests.
All right,
The state
defense.
rests. Thank you, Justin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Bye.
okay with continuing? All right, so we're gonna take, I'll set a 10-minute break, so I'll have you all back here at 5.
All right.
You're not to discuss anything
the
related
next
to this phase
witness
of the trial. Does everyone
To
understand?
testify,
All right, everyone, please rise.
I
for the
believe,
jury.
is Tuesday's mother. Let me find it. Closer. There we go. This is very emotional. This poor woman. She's just found out that her son has been found guilty of all 8 counts. He was taken out because he's been found guilty. He was incarcerated anyway, but for the time when court proceedings aren't going, that door there, they take the defendant back out and back into custody, and then once they're ready to start proceedings again, they come back out this door here. What is that one? 8:15. Yeah, 8:16. The testimony starts. There she goes to get him. There we are. And the audio should start up any second now. Ready, go. And go. Go. There we go.
All right, everyone, please be seated. Defense, call your witness.
Your Honor, defense calls Ruiz.
Maureen
Could you raise your
Ruiz.
right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record, and please keep your voice up so that members of the jury and the court reporter can hear.
Irene.
Better. Thank you, Judge. Speak up.
Irene,
Tell this jury how you're related to Jose.
He is my son.
And do you have other children? How many
Yes,
other children do you have?
I have 7.
7
You know that
children.
he is being convicted on all 8 counts, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to talk to you a little
This is the
bit
defense counsel
about
speaking to
your
their witness.
background in Jose's childhood.
Okay.
Okay. So can you describe to me, or did you witness violence in your home growing up?
Yes.
Can you just briefly describe what you witnessed
My dad would hit my mom.
and how often did that happen?
I saw it maybe like 5, 6 times.
Did that upset you?
Yes.
Did it upset you?
Yes.
Okay. At what age did you leave the home?
I left when I was 14.
After you left at age 14, did you ever return?
Sometimes in and out of the home.
Would that be in your teenage years or later?
My teenage years.
So there was, may I approach?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna put up a family tree just to help talk about. Can you see that?
Yes.
Who are Stella and Alvarado Ruiz?
My parents.
This is Irene here, and
And
this is Jose's father.
who is Senator Ray?
Jose's father.
What age did you become pregnant with your first child?
17.
With your first child?
Yes.
And how many children did you have with Senator?
3.
Okay, can you tell us their names and ages for please?
It's Samantha, Sanaida, and Jose.
And
So 3 children,
did
Two.
you raise
first gentleman,
Samantha, Snyder, and
2
Jose?
girls and a boy.
Yes.
And where is his father? Where's Senator?
He's in prison.
So
Do you know where he's
his
at?
father's in prison.
Not really, no.
Do you know how long he's in prison for?
No.
Has he been in prison? Did he go into prison before or after Jose was born?
Before.
He went to prison
And
before
has
Jose
he
was
remained in prison throughout Jose's life?
Yes.
And how old is Jose?
Let me think. 30,
They-
27, 28. Gonna be 28.
Okay. So throughout Jose's life, has Senator Ray remained in prison?
So Jose is
Yes.
27, 28, you say.
And what was your life like with Senator?
Oh, now you find it emotional.
What kind of, did you marry him?
No.
Were you, did you live together?
Yes.
Okay. And how long did y'all live together?
On and off 5 years.
Okay. And can you describe what that was like for you?
It was an abusive relationship.
Can you describe what kind of abuse you're talking about?
Second gentleman,
He would beat me.
I don't think she married either.
Did that
Not sure.
include during times when you were pregnant?
Yes.
But she had another 4 children to him. So a total of 7 children.
Did they witness that? Oh, no, yes, he
No.
did, because he was born after. He was in utero.
Mm-hmm.
Apologize for telling you that. Okay, was there, anything that, what was your reaction when you found out you were pregnant with Jose?
Scared.
Did you, seek to do anything during your pregnancy with Jose? Object to relevance of this pregnancy?
Yeah. Thought about doing anything during pregnancy, which I think she was hinting at. She considered
Why were you scared?
the pregnancy.
Because I already had 2 children and I was by myself.
And what kind of work were you doing?
I didn't work.
So you had concern about how you were going to support a 3rd child.
Yes.
Did that cause you to consider alternatives?
It's the same.
How was Jose a normal pregnancy?
Yes.
Says I had no pregnancy.
And was there a time after Jose was born that you moved back in with your mother?
Yes.
And what happened? Did she say you can stay as long as you want?
We would stay there and sometimes I felt like we weren't wanted.
She moved in with her mother with the 3 children, and they stayed there on and off, and she felt like she wasn't wanted.
What happened when the last time you moved out with your mom? What did you do? How old were you?
When I moved out of my mom's house, or
Yeah, for the last time.
for the last time, I was 19. I had my own place, but I would still go back and forth, back and forth.
And again, 3 children.
Correct.
Did there
Moved
come a
backwards and
time
forwards
when you
to her mother's house.
became involved in another relationship?
The next relationship.
Yes.
And who was that
Ruben.
relationship
Ruben,
with? Okay. And what's Ruben's last name?
Medina.
Okay. So on our chart here, we have Irene Ruiz and Senator Ray to the left. Now we have Ruben Medina to the right. Correct?
Yeah.
How long were you with Ruben Medina?
About 15 years.
Okay. How many children did you have with Ruben Medina?
4.
Can you just,
With
tell
Ruben
us the
for
names?
15 years. Had 4 children.
Ruben, Olivia, Hannah, and Rocco.
I'm sorry.
Rocco.
How was it with,
3
how soon
boys,
after
4
you
girls,
got
I
with
think.
Ruben did you have your first child?
I think it was like a year, maybe.
So approximately, you were approximately age 20.
Mm-hmm.
So at age 20, you had 4 children.
Correct.
And what was life like with Ruben at the beginning?
At the beginning, everything was good.
And to be clear, did your Jose, Zenaida, and Samantha also live there with you?
Yes.
And so was there some change that changed the environment of your relationship in your home?
Those-
Some change with Ruben?
I don't believe there was a change. I was always working.
7
Was
7
there a
children.
time when you were together that he was injured
One house.
at work, or did that happen before you were together?
No, it was when we were together.
Okay. So, not long after you got together, he became injured at work?
No, it was like a couple of years later that he
He's
got
in
injured.
a relationship. He got injured
How
at
many
work.
children did you have at that time?
When I first moved in, it was my 3 kids, and a year later I was pregnant with Ruben. So it was a total of 4.
Okay. And then how far apart are Rocco, Olivia, and Hannah? Are they pretty close in ages?
A year.
They're each a year apart.
Yes.
Okay.
So she had 7
So,
kids under 10.
was there a change in Ruben once he
Deserves a
became
medal.
injured?
For a chastity belt.
Yes.
Can you describe that?
He wouldn't want to do anything. He was very abusive towards kids.
So after his accident, he became abusive. This is Ruben.
And he started abusing me verbally at first.
Okay. So after his injury, did he ever become employed again after that? During the time y'all were together?
He was employed one time
For how long?
for, I think, a week.
So, and what kind of work
After
did you
his
do?
work accident, he only worked for a week.
I worked at McDonald's first, and then after that, I did taxes.
Okay, now during this time period, the 15 years that you were with
So she was the main breadwinner.
Ruben, senior, what's the most hourly rate of pay that you were paid, that if you remember?
No object to relevance. That'll be sustained.
Can you describe the circumstances of your home? Were you the sole provider?
Yes, we were poor.
9 mouths to feed on one income.
Did that sometimes result in hunger in the home?
Sometimes.
And you mentioned that Ruben Sr. was abusive to the kids.
Yes.
Were there some particular circumstances with regard to Jose?
Yes.
What was Ruben Sr. and Jose's relationship?
Oh, stop.
When I saw it, it was fine. I saw it was fine, but then
Well, was there a time when Jose was hospitalized as a toddler?
Jose was hospitalised
Yes.
at one stage.
And how long was he in the
She didn't
hospital
witness a lot of it because she was at work.
about 2 to 3 months.
Jose was in hospital for 2 to 3 months.
Internal injuries?
Yes.
Internal injuries.
Did Ruben give you some explanation for how that happened?
He told me that he had.
Objection to hearsay. All right, that'll be sustained.
Did Ruben give you an explanation at the time as to how that happened? Yes.
He fell off the bed.
Okay. Yes.
And Ruben's explanation was that Jose fell off the bed.
Did you
That's how he sustained the injuries.
later discover that there was actually something else that caused those injuries by Ruben?
Correct.
And what was the severity of his injuries? Were they life-threatening?
Yes.
You were working at this.
Hi, Joanne. I can't see any comments when you're comment on Facebook, my love. But thank you very much for your comment. I will read it later. If you'd like to make a comment on the live stream, you need to head to the Defence Rests. So if you type in at the Defence Rests on YouTube, and you can watch this live on there.
Yes.
How many hours a week do you think you were working?
An objection relevance.
It's the same.
Without fail, Catus interruptus.
Did your time you spent at work impact your time with your children?
Yes.
Did Jose ever have any head injuries that you recall?
Yes, he fell off a bike and he hit his head.
Did that result in a concussion?
Correct.
And did it require him to go to the hospital?
Yes.
And that was at age 12.
Yes.
And how many times did you observe Ruben, if you didn't, hit Jose in the head?
A couple of times.
And did you observe that to be a hard hit?
Yes.
And is it fair to say Ruben was hitting Jose in the head all through his childhood?
Yes.
We would hit Jose in the head often.
Did you move around a lot?
Did you move around a lot?
Do you recall? Do you recall what school district you went to school in?
SAISD.
School district.
If you do, can you tell us the schools you remember him attending?
No objection relevance. Must be overruled.
Do you remember in elementary school?
Yes, it was Carroll.
Do you remember in middle school?
It was Martin Luther King and Davis.
Okay, and then what about high school?
He went to John Jay.
Did he graduate high school?
Yes.
He walked the stage?
Yes.
What was your relationship like with Jose?
What was your relationship like with Jose?
You're my rock. Just a lot of love. A lot of hugging, caring.
I don't know how you
Always looking out for me.
something like that as a mother.
Always a jokester.
What was his interaction with his brothers and sisters?
He loves them. Of course, there was always bickering, but playing around.
Well, how many bedrooms
Yeah,
did you have?
got along with the siblings.
We had 3.
And how many bathrooms?
2.
And that was for 9 people.
Correct.
3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms for 9 people.
At the time that Jose was hospitalized as a toddler with internal injuries, do you remember if CPS was called?
Yes.
Do you remember if CPS responded?
Yes.
All right, could you repeat the question, please?
Do you remember when CPS responded?
Yes.
All right, that'll be overruled.
Were your children removed?
From Ruben, yes.
As a result of that investigation?
Correct.
And did he, like, Ruben later come back into the picture?
Correct.
You know this jury has convicted him on 8 counts of horrific acts.
Yes.
Do you know another side of Jose?
Yes.
Do you think the violence and abuse he experienced as a child has had an impact on him?
I'm going to reject speculation and lack of personal knowledge and lack of expertise.
That'll be sustained.
He witnessed and was a victim of a lot of abuse.
Correct.
And did Ruben have particular feelings towards Jose?
I don't think he cared for it.
Did you observe Ruben to be especially hard on Jose?
Yes.
I pass it to Mr. Sanchez.
Let's see.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mrs. Ruiz. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. If I speak too fast, please let me know, or if you don't understand the question, please let me know as well, okay? You have a good relationship with Jose, correct?
Correct.
Would you say that he knows the difference between right and wrong?
Sometimes.
Okay, but he's a loving son, he gets along with his siblings and with you?
Yes.
Okay. What do you mean by sometimes he knows the difference between right and wrong?
Doesn't everybody know the difference between right and wrong?
Okay, so he does know the difference between right and wrong. You said that you were a victim of violence yourself, correct?
Yes.
Did you beat your children?
No. It was discipline, but not beating.
Okay. What did you see Ruben do to Jose specifically?
Hit him with the cane on his head.
What else?
Spank him.
So these are life, and he did have life-threatening injuries at some point, correct?
When he was a child, yes.
Okay. As a result of Ruben?
Correct.
What would you, I know you got back with him eventually, but what would you have wanted to see happen to somebody who had given your child life-sustaining injuries or life-threatening injuries?
Oh, that'd be overruled.
I thought it can change him the same way my son thought he can change Katrina.
Was Jose ever violent with his siblings?
No.
Did you ever see Ruben put thumbtacks in Jose's feet?
No.
Do you know why Jose would put thumbtacks in a 5-year-old child's feet and take pictures of it?
I don't know if he did that.
Okay, it has been, he's been convicted of it, ma'am, and there was evidence that on his phone.
Everybody has their own opinion, ma'am.
Okay. Did Ruben ever put urine in Jose's mouth?
No. That I
Did
know.
Ruben ever smear dog feces on his face?
I don't know.
Did he ever make him kneel in a corner bound to a pole with his arms tied to it?
That I don't know. He would make him kneel.
Did he ever make him kneel on rice?
I believe so.
Ask the witness.
I'll pass the witness at this time, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.
Thank you.
Defense, call your next witness.
Your Honor, defense calls Samantha Ray.
Samantha Ray, the next witness, which is Jose's sister. I believe she is the eldest from Jose's real father. So the three children from the first relationship, where the father is in jail with the hair. I think he has two half sisters,
Can you raise your right hand?
two half brothers, and two full sisters.
The truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yeah. All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so members of the jury and court reporter can hear.
Yes,
You'll
ma'am.
state your name for the record.
Samantha Ray.
Defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Samantha, and how old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay. And what is your relationship to Jose?
He's my brother.
And obviously your younger brother.
Yes.
Okay. And we had like a family tree up earlier. You have two full siblings, Jose and Sineda.
Yes.
And then you have some half siblings,
Yes.
Ruben, Waco, Anna, and Olivia.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Did you have a particular kind of relationship with Jose?
Yes, we were close. We are close.
And what kind of brother was he?
He's a good brother.
And you lived in the home that your mom described? With
Yes,
your
ma'am.
siblings and Ruben, correct?
Correct.
Was Ruben abusive?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe things that he used to hit you with?
I'm gonna check her relevance as to her. Sister.
Can you describe things that Ruben used to hit Jose in the head with?
With his cane, his fist, his sandal, just anything he had, he would.
Did you ever observe Jose to have a kind of a physical reaction to that?
He would get dizzy.
Okay. Do you remember if he ever passed out?
I think a couple times we all did.
And how often did you see that happen?
A lot.
Like daily, weekly?
It was daily.
And so can you describe what Ruben was he a stay-at-home parent, if you will?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And what, was he under the influences of drugs or alcohol?
You know,
I'm sorry, I'm gonna object to that. That'll be open, you can answer.
I know he was on medication. So,
Do you remember what he was on medication for?
for his back.
Did you see bruises on Jose?
Yes.
Did Ruben have a particular thing he did with your hair, with Jose's hair?
With mine or my brother's?
Well, let's talk about Jose's.
Not my brother, no.
Do you remember him shaving their heads forcefully?
Yeah, that I do.
And were there stairs in your home or in your apartment complex? Where were stairs?
In our house?
Okay. And did Ruben do anything with the stairs?
Yes, he would push us down.
And did Ruben act a particular way to Jose?
Yes.
In what way?
He didn't like him. It was with all of us, but he would constantly, like I said, hit all of us. Yeah.
Well, did he Besides what everyone else got, what did Jose get?
We pretty much got all the same thing, but it was always towards my brother always got more of it. Like,
Jose got more.
Yeah.
And what kinds of discipline, if you will, that Ruben used on Jose?
He would put him in the corner.
Can you describe what that was like?
He was sitting in the corner for hours. I don't know.
In a chair?
No, on our knees.
And was there anything on the floor when he was in the corner all these things?
Not that I can remember.
Did you put pillows down to make it more comfortable?
No, Mom.
Did you put things down to make it less comfortable?
No, it was just the knees.
And what else would he have Jose do in the corner?
Sometimes I had to carry things. He had to carry things.
Like what?
Like just heavy stuff, like like a weight, if I can remember.
And what would Ruben do if, say, for example, Jose tries to put something down?
He sometimes wasn't there. He would just leave us in the corner and he would just go off back to sleep. So really when we got up, we got up, but if not, if we got caught, we'll get hit. He'll get hit.
What about food? Did Ruben deprive you? Well, your mom, what hours did your mom work? Do you remember?
She was at work like day and night. She was always at work. I don't remember the exact times, but it was just always work.
Okay. So when your mom was at work, Ruben was the only person watching y'all?
Yes.
Okay. And did Ruben, what did Ruben do about food in the home?
He would keep food from us. He would hide food if we got in trouble for it.
Did he ever eat in front of you or in Jose without letting you eat anything?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you remember if he locked your food away from you and your brother and sisters?
If he what?
If he locked food away?
Locked food away?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Ruben hit Jose with a cane or other objects almost every day.
Correct.
And in addition to seeing times when Jose got dizzy or passed out, were there other physical indications of the abuse on Jose's head?
I don't understand.
Well, when he hit, for example, hit Jose in the head, did something happen to his head that you remember?
And they get big old knots.
Do you remember an incident with Ruben, a senior, and Jose in the bathtub?
No, but I heard the story.
I'm going to object to anything on what she doesn't have personal knowledge.
Right, you ask your next question.
Thank you. Did you observe Ruben to be violent towards your mother?
Yes.
And what about your mother? Was your mother What was your mother's mental state during these years?
I'm gonna object to speculation irrelevant.
Do you remember seeing violence, Ruben, towards your mom?
Yes.
And what about your mom towards Ruben?
No.
Would how bad would that violence between Ruben and your mom been?
It was bad.
Do you feel like your mom did enough to protect Jose?
I'm gonna object to relevant.
Was CPS ever called?
Yes.
Family?
Mhm.
How many times that you recall CPS being called?
I remember about 3 times.
And do you remember what happened when CPS was involved? Like, did you stay in the home or were you moved from the home
We stayed in the home.
on all 3 of those times?
Yes.
And your relationship with Jose, have y'all remained close?
Yeah, we have our arguments like every sibling does, but yeah.
Well, did you have particular feelings about his relationship with Katrina?
Yes.
How many times did you see Mercedes?
I only saw her. I hardly ever saw her. I lived on my own with my husband. I saw her one time on New Year's. After New Year's, I saw her about like 2 more times. That was about it.
And were your brothers close with Jose?
Yes.
And do you have children of your own?
Yes, Mom, I did.
3?
Yes. Mhm.
And what is your children's interaction with Jose that you have observed?
They love him.
I pass witness at this time, Judge.
Yes, Judge. Ms. Samantha, you just mentioned that the couple times that you saw Mercedes, you said that you saw her after New Year's.
I saw her on New Year's.
On New Year's.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. What year was that?
Last year, I believe it was last year. Or no, not, I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know.
Okay, so if she died on February 7th of 2022, was it the New Year's right before that? Or
Yes,
was it-
ma'am.
Okay, and so you didn't see her after New Year's Day or Eve?
No, ma'am.
And you said that you have 3 kids of your own?
Yes, I do.
Just, what are their age ranges?
7, 5, and 4.
And do you treat your kids the way Ruben treated you and your siblings?
Your
No,
Honor,
ma'am, I
object to
don't.
relevance.
Pass the witness.
Did Katrina ever say to you what her connection with Mercedes
I'm gonna
was?
object to hearsay.
Ask your question.
Did you have conversations with Katrina? Did you have conversations with Katrina about Mercedes?
Sometimes I would ask her, where is she?
All right, the answer to that question is either yes or no. You
Sorry.
need to listen to the question and only answer what's asked. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, ask your question.
Do you remember having conversations with Katrina about Mercedes?
Yes.
Do you remember whether Katrina expressed having a close bond with Mercedes or not having any bond?
No
I'm
bond.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna object to leading and hearsay.
Sustained.
Do you remember the kind of relationship that Katrina described to you between her and Mercedes?
I'm gonna object to hearsay.
That's either yes or no.
Yes.
Ask your next question.
Did Katrina express to you that different feelings towards Mercedes than Jordan?
Yes.
Excuse me. When an objection is raised, you need to stop talking,
Yes.
and then I'll make a ruling on that.
Yes.
Your objection is the same. Next question.
Okay. Did you observe Katrina to interact with Mercedes,
No.
with Jordan?
Sometimes.
This time, Your Honor.
I have no further questions.
All right, you may step down. Call your next witness.
All right. The next witness is forensic psychologist John Fabian,
Officers, are you all okay with continuing?
and he basically waffles on for nearly an hour of mumbo jumbo, but the upshot of it is basically that he had diagnosed Jose with PTSD and depression. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, what he came up with. So we will skip now to, what is it, 10:52.
This domestic violence to his mom and to his sister, and he experienced it. So we're looking at what we call polytrauma or polyvictimization, meaning now we've got a couple different types of trauma within the family. And really the rule of thumb is the more the worse. And so, and the earlier the worse. So when we're looking at PTSD, that's a psychiatric diagnosis where a person needs to have been exposed, witnessed, experienced, heard of traumatic events, and then that person will have psychological symptoms from that trauma or the traumatic experiences. And in this case, like many males I evaluate, they don't deal with it. And that's where you get in more in that self-medication where he really was using cannabis and Xanax just to kind of numb himself. And that's where what I saw with him, where he was not on substances, but there was just an emotional numbness to him where he was not too in depth with his emotions or feelings, despite this type of childhood. And that's normal, certainly in the criminal justice system, and especially when I'm the first person that's, I think, ever evaluated him.
When you talk about polytrauma and polyvictimization, is that complex trauma? Am I getting those confused, or are they interchangeable?
That's a good question. So complex trauma is really more evidence of severe trauma, and that's often within the family, interpersonal, mom, dad, child, and it could be sexual, physical, emotional abuse, or a combination, and it can affect the child in that often it's severe or it's severe intense, but it's
Sorry, I went to 9:52 and not 10:52 on my little timestamp. Sorry about that. No. All right, let's start again.
Consideration for any purpose whatsoever. In your deliberations, you may consider evidence introduced during the guilt phase of the trial, as well as any evidence introduced at the punishment phase of the trial. Under the instructions herein given, it will not be proper for you, in determining the penalty to be assessed, to fix the same by lot, chance, any system of averages, or any other method than by a full, fair, and free exercise of the opinion of the individual jurors under the evidence admitted before you. The length of time for which the defendant is imprisoned may be reduced by the award of parole. Under the law applicable to counts 1 and 2 in this case, if the defendant is sentenced to a term of imprisonment, the defendant will not be eligible for parole until the actual time served equals 1/2 of the sentence imposed, or 30 years, whichever is less. If the defendant is sentenced to a term of less than 4 years, the defendant must serve at least 2 years before the defendant is eligible for parole. Eligibility for parole does not guarantee that parole will be granted. It cannot accurately be predicted how the parole law might be applied to this defendant if sentenced to a term of imprisonment, because the application of that law will depend on decisions made by parole authorities. You may consider the existence of the parole law. You are not to consider the manner in which the parole law may be applied to this particular defendant. Under the law applicable to counts 3 through 8, in this case, the defendant, if sentenced to a term of imprisonment, may earn early parole eligibility through the award of good conduct time. Prison authorities may award good conduct time to a prisoner who exhibits good behavior, diligence in carrying out prison work assignments, and attempts at rehabilitation. If a prisoner engages in misconduct, prison authorities may also take away all or part of any good conduct time earned by the prisoner. Under the law applicable to counts 3 through 8 in this case, if the defendant is sentenced to a term of imprisonment, the defendant will not become eligible for parole until the actual time served plus any good time conduct time earned equals 1/4 of the sentence imposed. Eligibility for parole does not guarantee that parole will be granted. It cannot accurately be predicted how the parole law and good conduct time might be applied to this defendant if sentenced to a term of imprisonment, because the application of these laws will depend on decisions made by prison and parole authorities. You may consider the existence of the parole law and good conduct time. However, you are not to consider the extent to which good conduct time may be awarded to or forfeited by this particular defendant. You are not to consider the manner in which parole law may be applied to this particular defendant. Suitable forms are attached hereto for your verdicts, if you should care to use them. However, such forms are not intended to influence you in any way in arriving at your verdict. In any event, each verdict must be unanimous in writing and signed by your presiding juror. Respectfully submitted, Judge Stephanie Boyd, 187 Judicial District Court, Bexar County, Texas. State, are you prepared to proceed?
Judge, I'd like to reserve my time for rebuttal, please.
All right, defense.
Thank you, Jen.
His eyes, the reflection of his glasses. It's got blue laser eyes.
And I asked you when
This is closing statements for the second phase, the sentencing phase of the trial. So once these are over, the jury then deliberates and comes back with what they consider a suitable sentence.
we started, to stay with me if you can, please, to hear chapter 1. Chapter 1 of Jose Ruiz's life, because I know when you heard the evidence on guilt and innocence, you said, how can this be? How can this happen? How in this world can this happen? And I hope that through the testimony of my witnesses, what you've heard today, I hope you can help to understand some of the context that brought us here today, because it's important. Jose had the curse of a double whammy. And what I mean by that is Dr. Fabian talked about nurture and nature. And Jose was cursed by nature with a genetic predisposition towards horrific violence committed by his biological father, who he's never met in person, by the way. And then Jose was cursed.
A genetic predisposition. So it's in his genes. It's genetically passed down. Is that what you're trying to tell us? I'm calling bullshit here.
You should off you fuck.
With horrific trauma within the home that tended to normalize that abuse in his life experience. he was what was modeled for him.
Yes, it may have been something that he normalized, but he made his own choices.
Was abuse, trauma, chaos, lack of attachment, physical pain related to discipline. These were things that were modeled for him and he experienced as a young child. As
And he's an
early
adult
as
now.
approximately age 1.5 to 2 years, he was in the hospital with internal injuries, having been beaten by his stepfather. So it is no small thing I'm talking about here when I say to you that this cycle of abuse rolls on. And it is not an excuse here, but it is a way to maybe put some context on it. And I think that's important when you go back to consider punishment. What is the context here? And what are the kinds of things that I ask that you think about, which are how this intergenerational abuse occurred in his life. Dr. Fabian said, the more the worse, the earlier the worse. And that's what Jose experienced. He experienced more, and that created the worst possible situation. He experienced it early, which contributed to the worst possible situation. And what do I mean? That his risk of committing the same behavior was higher and was elevated due to what he experienced in his life. Again, it's not an excuse. We know we've applied for probation, but you have a large range of punishment to consider in front of you and on many counts. And we're asking that you please go back and when you consider the range of punishment, consider the story of his whole life. Consider the abuse that he experienced at the hands of his stepfather, hitting him in the head daily, becoming dizzy at times and losing consciousness or passing out because his stepfather hit him in the head with a cane or a fist or a shoe. That was his life on a daily basis. What else did he experience in terms of head injury and trauma and concussion at age 12? And these all contributed to neurological difficulties that he experienced. Dr. Fabian talked to you about complex trauma, polytrauma, concussions, hit in the head daily, and those things had a terrible impact on Jose's worldview, and on his ability to assess appropriate punishment, his ability to assess what's right or wrong, because he learned what was modeled for him. No one intervened on his behalf. No one acted in a protective way towards Jose. It happened and it happened and it happened again, day after day, and no one did anything. What is the message that sends to him? Well, I guess it's normal. It's normalized in my world. No one's doing anything about it. I guess I just have to suffer, and that's the way we do. And that is part one of Jose's life that brings him here today. And we're asking you to consider those things. And when you consider punishment for Jose, to please take into account the mitigating circumstances of his life and return a punishment on the low end, please. Thank you. Straight.
You know who doesn't get a chapter 2? Mercedes Lasoya. She didn't even get to finish chapter 1. I'm going to talk about some housekeeping issues first. Judge mentioned this in the charge. The fine doesn't matter. It doesn't go to Mercedes' family. It doesn't go to Jordan. It goes to the court system. Do what you want to with the fine. We're not going to ask you to assess any fine, but if you want to, go right ahead. Punishment on each of these 8 counts does not stack. It does not run.
Your Honor, I object to that being.
She basically is saying that the 8 charges that he was found guilty of, when they do the sentencing, they are to run concurrently. So altogether, not consecutively, one on top of the other, or stacking, as she's saying.
Stated to the jury. I would ask that the jury be instructed to disregard that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're instructed to disregard.
And, Your Honor, based on the fact that I believe that creates a constitutional violation against my client's rights to fair process, I ask for this.
All right, that would be denied. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you're to ignore that. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
You may continue.
Thank you, Judge. Okay. Let's talk about some things that defense counsel brought up. They're asking you to consider Jose's whole life, the story of his whole life. I'm asking you to consider Mercedes' life and the life that she does not get to live. The life of torture and abuse that this man did to her. And defense wants you to believe that it's not his fault because this is what happened to him. This is learned behavior. Well, you know what? Jose himself told y'all when he was talking to Detective Size that no way would he have ever done those things to Mercedes Lozoya because he knows how it feels. He knew how it felt. The things that he did to that little girl. He knew what he was doing. And his mother got up here and told you he knows right from wrong. And that jail call tells you he knew what he was doing was wrong. I'm not going to show you the horrible pictures again. I am going to show you one slide if it's connected. If not, Brittany brought up in her closing the timeline of the day of that thumbtack picture. And that shortly thereafter, that Ring camera picture of the thumbtacks were the bound crucifix nude photos of Mercedes. And now you've learned that 2 minutes later, he's taking a picture of her vagina.
Your Honor, I object. That's not in evidence at all.
It was testified.
It is. Exhibit 81.
Ladies and gentlemen, you'll remember that evidence as you heard it.
You've now heard from people who loved Mercedes. You've heard about Jordan, how Jordan carries a bear and she likes to sleep with a bear that she calls Sissy because she misses her sister. That she's now changed her name to carry on her sister's name. Her favorite color is purple because that was her Sissy's favorite color. You've heard from Uncle Rodney, who wanted this little girl. They wanted her. They could have taken good care of her. And he took that from them. Thank you, Judge. The prior abuse is no excuse. Somebody has to end the cycle. People who are abused go on to not abuse other people every day. People who are below average or unintelligent or on cannabis or have symptoms of PTSD go on to not beat and torture little girls. This is not an excuse. Did he show mercy to Mercedes when he put thumbtacks in her feet? Did he show mercy to Mercedes when he beat her repeatedly, locked her in a closet, put dog feces, urine in her mouth? Absolutely not. That little girl was a happy, feisty little girl who deserved to live her life and not be tortured at the hands of Jose Ruiz. I ask that you not show him any mercy, just like he did not show Mercedes any mercy, and sentence him to the max punishment allowed on each count.
Wow. 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 That was powerful. Brutal, but powerful. So the timestamp we note on here, hang on, I'll move myself up again. Back to there. Timestamp 10:52 You see that right at the bottom there? That is now the beginning of jury deliberations on the sentencing. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but right at the bottom here in that red line, that's where we're up to, where that red line is right there. And that little bit of grey bit at the end is what's left of this video. So let me skip ahead all of 11 minutes. There. And play.
I can call the attorney tomorrow, or okay. So what do you want me to do? Oh, you can call him tomorrow. I'll give him a call tomorrow. And this is going to be paired with trial, I think, unless they want to hear it.
Relax while you can, buddy. I'll be back in a minute.
We are ready. Just one moment. So it's the court's understanding that a verdict has been reached as far as punishment is concerned. There are not to be any outbursts in the courtroom. If there are outbursts, you will be removed. Does everyone understand? All right. We're ready.
All right, for the jury.
So they have to sentence him as per each count, and each count has its own minimum and maximum requirements under the law. I think the state was asking for life without parole. That's the maximum sentence under count one. Put the microphone to the speaker to hear it.
Understanding is that you've reached a verdict as it relates to punishment. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is that verdict unanimous?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, if you'll pass the verdict form to Deputy Laura, please. All right, with regards to count one, we assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of life and no fine. Count two,
Life in
we
prison.
assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of 20 years, no fine. Count three, we assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of 10 years, no fine. Count four, we assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of 10 years, no fine. Count five, we assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of 10 years, no fine. Count six, we assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice System for a term of 10 years, no fine. Count seven, we assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of 10 years, no fine. Count eight, we assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of 10 years, no fine. Would anyone wish to have the jury poll? State?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Deputy Laura take you back to the jury room, and I'll meet you there shortly. Everyone, please rise for the jurors.
So to recap that, the 8 charges, he got unanimously found guilty for each charge across the board, clean slate, and the sentencing. I think he received the maximum under counts 2 to 8, but I think the maximum sentence for count 1 was life without parole. So they sentenced him to life. So when the judge was reading the jury instructions earlier, apparently you are eligible for parole when you've served a quarter of your sentence. So he could be eligible for parole, and that's totally up to the parole board. But yeah, he could be eligible for parole. I'm not actually sure how long the technical term of life. I think it might be set at like 25 years, or I'm not sure. It could be 99. I'll follow that up. But yes, once he's served a quarter of that, he is then eligible for parole. And as I said, the sentence is to run concurrently, not consecutively. So they don't add up to 80 years for counts 3 to 8 and another 20 on top of that plus life. The maximum sentence is life.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, Mr. Ruiz, having been found guilty and the punishment been assessed by the jury, as to count 1, the court will sentence you to life in prison, give you credit for any time served. I'm unable to stack these sentences. Therefore, the sentences will run concurrently. Count 1 through 8 will run concurrent. Count 2, your punishment is to be assessed at 20 years in the prison. Count 3 through 8, your punishment is to be assessed at 10 years in the prison. In each cause number, you will receive credit for any time served. Is there anything else from either side with regards to punishment, State? All right, defense? Yeah. All right, Mr. Ruiz, did you review the document entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeals with your attorney? Did you understand it and did you sign it? Yes, ma'am. All right, this is not a plea. You do have a right to an appeal. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. All right. Is there a victim impact? Yes, sir.
All right. We're going to end it here because the audio.
All right, you may proceed, and you'll have to give it from back there seated.
My mouse isn't working properly. The victim impact statements are done with the victim sitting in the sitting back in the courtroom. There's no microphones with them or anything, so it's very difficult to hear them. If you really want to follow up and watch them, go to KSAT 12 or KSAT News on YouTube and Judge Boyd. So at Judge Boyd, the links are included in the description below. And I do encourage you to go down there and like and subscribe to their channels. They have some amazing content. And I thank them very much for putting out that content. I hope you've enjoyed my coverage of the trial. I've tried to condense it down to the most important facts within the case. And I think I reduced something like, well, that today's video was 11 hours that I reduced down to 2 hours and 20 minutes. So it's a minimum of an 8-hour trial per day. So it's more like a speed trial, cutting out all the breaks and all the, the technical data and stuff, so that people that don't have as much time to be able to watch the entirety of it, or to be able to catch it live, or just want to know the most important bits with a little bit of commentary through the middle, that's what I'm looking at providing for everyone. So that concludes the Jose Ruiz trial. I have a couple of other trials coming up that I'm going to follow on. The first one is it's another horrific case involving 3 young boys, and that is beginning on the 1st of April. So I will be doing all of the pre-trial stuff and an overview live stream within the next week or so as a lead up to that, to give you the information before the trial starts. And the second one that I'm going to, it starts at a similar time. It was supposed to commence on the 4th of April this year, but has been granted a continuance. It's actually a retrial. So the case was heard in January. It's called the Treehouse Murders. So it's about a gentleman called Tyrone Tucker. And he is a pro se defendant. So that means he is representing himself. And the trial was held in January, and the jury couldn't come to a decision. So it was a hung jury. So this is the second trial. It's a retrial. It's held down in the Florida Keys. So that we'll get to find out the exact date of when that trial begins after the 4th of April. And I can live stream that status hearing if anyone's interested, but I'll be also compiling all the details and the history and the background. And I'll present that to you as a lead up as well. So we're all up to date and ready to go for when those trials begin. And if I can broadcast live at the time, I will definitely try to. If not, I will be doing recaps in the evening after the trial. I'll be watching the trial during the day and then doing the live stream of the recap just to cut it down a bit. So let me know in the comments what you would prefer, whether you'd prefer to sit through the entire live 8 hours, or if you would like me to cut down and just present you the most relevant and important pieces throughout the trial, and cut out all the lunch breaks and all the morning breaks and the afternoon breaks and the large bench approaches and objections and all sorts of things. And if you are aware of any other trials that you might like to hear, that you know of that are coming up, or any other thing that has to do with court cases or criminal history or arrests or anything crime related, basically true crime, feel free to post it into the comments. Even if you are catching it on the replay, I do get the comments on YouTube. I don't actually get any comments via Facebook until I've ended the live stream. So I can't interact with any comments on Facebook, but I can certainly interact with your comments when you watch it live through or on the replay with YouTube. So thank you once again for watching. I've enjoyed. Hello, Felix. It's Mummy's bedtime, is it? Yes, I can see your tail in the back there. Every video. Mummy's little spoilt boy. All right. Thanks again for watching. And until next time, I shall bid you adieu.